Okay, welcome super users and super user supporters. I am here with Moazam Shah. He is the CFO of Al-Zamil for Industry, Trade, and Transport, coming to us all the way from Saudi Arabia. So really, really excited to have you on the call. He is an award-winning CFO. And I met Moazam after listening to a really interesting podcast that he did, and I connected with him just because I really enjoyed that podcast. And when I heard his thoughts and philosophies on the value of super users all the way from across Saudi Arabia, realizing that these problems are not just the U.S., but they're all over the world, I knew that we had to do this recording. So, Moazam, thanks for getting on. Really appreciate it, and welcome.
Thanks, thanks for having me on your podcast.
Yes, really, really excited to have you on. It feels like I'm right there with you, and I'm so far away. So,
yeah.
why don't we start off by having you share your journey to the role of CFO? How about
that? This is because before stepping into the ring fence, i.e. the community of the CFOs about 6 years ago, I had an impression that this is a community of elite finance professionals who spend most of their time on the golf course, and they can afford to wear expensive suits and ties. And I always say that, but my perception before stepping into the ring fence was wrong, because the reality was completely different. So my CFO journey actually starts from a phone call that I received from a friend back in 2012 while I was working as a senior manager of finance in a food manufacturing business based out of Riyadh. Now, through that phone call, I came to know about a CFO opportunity at another food processing business here in the kingdom, and so I actually reached out to the relevant person along with my resume, and the next thing was that I was called in for an interview. Now, this opportunity was at Gulf Uni, who manufactures long life fruit beverages, having 49% stake in the business, held by a very well-known private equity firm here in the region. So almost about 3 rounds of interviews, I was offered a job as a CFO, and that was my first time becoming a CFO. Now, I was in that job, I was given a mandate to restructure the finance function from scratch, and then to implement SAP, which is a global, renowned, well-known ERP system solution, and also to help the private equity firm, who was one of the shareholders, to exit the business through an M&A transaction. So those were the 3 challenges, those were the 3 tasks that I was given by the shareholders, including the CEO of that company, who actually also happened to be one of the shareholders. Before I accepted the offer, I consulted a few senior friends of mine who had spent some time in the same role, working with different industries, and who have gone through the ERP implementation experience firsthand. And most of them actually advised me not to go near a company that is planning to go for an ERP implementation, because they thought that it's a very, very messy job. The chances of failure are very high, and to some of them, ERP implementation is a word which is synonymous to the open heart surgery of an organization. So it's a complicated job. It can actually end up in a disaster, and at times it can prove to be something that's very difficult to manage. So a lot of discouragement from a few folks, which I obviously considered, but then after thinking about it for a very long time, I thought that I'm going to give it a shot. So I accepted
Well,
that
I
offer.
think, yeah, and I think you answered my question that I was going to have is, wow, you jumped into a new role of CFO and an ERP implementation. I mean, that was what was going on in my mind, and you already addressed that other people were saying, run, crazy man.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is that traditionally the role of the CFO is viewed only as a role, a leadership role in the finance function. So at the end of the day, you're expected to run the finance function, to have the bank facilities in place whenever the business needs it, to have relationships with the bankers, with the lawyers, with the private equity, with the investors, and with the shareholders, and making sure that you get the financial statements out on time at the end of the month and go through a smooth audit process. But with me, it was kind of a unique situation because my first role in as a CFO and having a mandate to do an ERP implementation in a fairly decent sized company here in Saudi Arabia, which have operations not only here in the kingdom, but also in Dubai and in Jordan as well. So multiple jurisdictions, a large group of customers, more than 200 SKUs, which means the stock keeping unit. So it was fairly a complex business. So I jumped. I like you said, I actually jumped right into it, took on the challenge, and then learned all the way along as I went through the process. And at the end of 8 months of really working hard, that project actually came out as a success story. So thanks. That was a little bit about ERP, my experience in the ERP implementation. Then more so, I had to restructure the finance function, and also I helped the private equity firm in their exit through a trade sale. So those were the three major things that I did in my first role as CFO at Gulf Union Foods Company. Now, after I've completed all of those three projects, I was once again offered by the same private equity firm to manage similar projects in one of their other portfolio companies, which is where I'm working right now, and that's Al-Zamil for Industry, Trade and Transport. So a little bit about the background of this business. It's kind of a conglomerate, i.e., it's into manufacturing of industrial products. We do a lot of trading by importing different products from Europe and the U.S., selling them here in the Middle East, and also we are in insulation and construction industry. So it's mix of different industry sectors that this company deals in, and more complex than in terms of the business structure, more complex than my previous the previous company. And in the last 3 years or so, I've done another ERP implementation. So went through the same experience again. Did a successful ERP implementation. This time around, it was not SAP, it was Microsoft Dynamics AX that we implemented. We went live on the 1st of January of 2017. And as we speak right now, I am helping the same private equity firm in their exit through a trade sale. So that's my journey as the CFO.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, really great. And that's a great segue. So I'm going to jump into the super user space because when you're talking about, I mean, that's an amazing journey, and you're a brave man. So you just jumped in it. And sometimes I think it takes bravery. You just know that you can do the job, and you have to be brave and jump into it. And so now you've got the SAP under your belt, and now another ERP system. And so this fits really well into what we're doing as a community right now, because we're in the middle of 2018 and we're rebranding this year, and we're rebranding away from SAP Insight, and our new brand name will be SunSource, and
Yep.
Sun stands for Super User Network, because super user networks are more than just about the specific technology of SAP. So we're opening our arms to super users of any enterprise application. So can you speak to that? Because see, you're seeing super user need across multiple ERPs. That goes well with this rebranding theme. But, from the eyes of your CFO office and seeing the implementations across two different ERP platforms, are you seeing that there's the same need as far as super users are concerned?
Yeah, look, I personally see an ERP implementation as a business project rather than an IT project, because in different industries and even among the CFO community, the perception that I've seen is that a lot of people still think that ERP implementation is an IT project. So it's got nothing to do with finance. It's got nothing to do with anyone else in the company. It's purely something that should be managed by the IT folks. Whereas I think it's not an IT project. It's not a finance project. It's a business project. Yeah. So what it entails is collaboration and alignment of cross-functional leadership within an organization to bring about the change that is required. Yeah. So change management is one of the key success factors of any ERP implementation anywhere in the world. And I consider the role of the super users as the change agents. Yeah, they bridge the gap. What they do is they are the ones who bridge the gap between the implementation team, the project team, and their end users who will be running the system, using the system later on day-to-day basis. And they are the ones who ensure a successful delivery of the projects. They are usually designated resources within the organization who learn, first of all, they learn how to use the new system, and then they transfer that knowledge to the end users. Yeah. So I see them I see the super users as in-house experts of the system and their own business processes. They roll the implementation project. I'm sorry, what did you say?
No, I said, yeah, that's absolutely spot on.
Yeah. And their role during the implementation project is very diverse. It ranges from designing the blueprint of their own respective functional areas to understanding the nuts and bolts of the new system, because the new system is obviously something new for most of them. They have never worked in SAP or Oracle or other products, so they got to learn it. And then after learning it, they test it. They test the newly designed system and then train their end users. So their role is very crucial. They are the ones who do all the troubleshooting once the project is live, and they basically connect different dots together, i.e., the end users and the project team and the technical support. So their role is absolutely critical.
Yeah, and what we're trying to do within our community is to really evangelize and help leaders understand the value of maintaining that super user community, that super user network, long beyond the project. Because I think in my experience, and I've been living with super users for 20 plus years now, what happens is they raise up as part of a project, which we all know how to do that, raise them up as part of a project. But when the project ends, so does the budget and the leadership for the super users. And people have historically magically believed that the super users would go back into their business units and they would continue to be super forever. And we all know that that doesn't work anymore. And so really having an effort where we see the executives in the company understanding that there has to be an investment of these people as a key resource, but not just individual people across the functions, but collecting them together as a network to survive the project. So for me, I call it project agnostic, but project ready. And then
Correct.
Also you add in the dimension of support, and you add in the dimension of that continuous business process execution improvement, which I think is key as well.
True.
So do you see that, in the companies that you've been exposed to and also the companies within which you've led, that there's been an effort in the past to, or actually I'll just say an acknowledgement that there needs to be some effort that is outside of the project to keep these super users together? Are you seeing that at all?
Absolutely. Having successfully delivered a couple of ERP implementations to date, I can say with experience that super users are kind of lifeblood in any organization. Yeah. They are, like I said earlier, they are the in-house consultants, trainers, and also a catalyst for change during and after the project implementation. And my selection criteria for super users is whereby I handpick individuals from different functional areas of the organization based on two things. The first thing for me is their thorough understanding of the business process. Yeah, because unless they are completely aware of what's happening in their own functional area, they will not be able to translate that to the project team and be able to effectively translate it on the business process blueprint. And the second criteria that I always look for is a very superior level of communication skills, because these guys, they are the trainers. So unless they have a good communication skill, a good leadership skill, and a good motivational skill, they will not be able to bring about the change that's needed, and also they'll not be able to motivate and support the end users. Now, as part of their role as the super users, I think they must maintain an up-to-date knowledge of their own business cycle, and just to focus on documenting any changes that happens in their area. So documentation is the key, and also with the help of their communication and leadership skill, they can train, motivate the end users. And then also they are the ones who relay any technical issues to the project management and the technical team. Likewise, that's the area of the super users. Now, as far as the leadership of the super users are concerned, whether they are within that organization or at a different level, like a community that you have established for the super users, I think for those leaders, they must invest in an ongoing awareness and an ongoing training. It could be a formal training or an informal training for these super users. They must keep them motivated by engaging them in discussions around different changes in the structure of the business, the customer needs, the infrastructure, and the business processes, and to seek their continuous feedback and reward them properly, because these people, like I said, they are at the heart of the success of any project. So you got to keep them motivated, and motivation doesn't only come only from a financial reward, but it also comes with a higher level of engagement in different issues, seeking their feedback, and just giving them the due appreciation that they deserve.
Yeah, I can tell you that my experience with super users is just have the opportunity as being a part of a network to get exposure to different areas of the business and also get exposed to executives and management and other people within the company is a huge motivator to these people. And by nature, they just want to support other people and they want to help their businesses be better. So I can tell you the things that you've said about the criteria for super users. I can promise you that any super user leader that is listening to this podcast will want to reach through the podcast and give you a big hug because we know that it's not just about the technology. And in the past, so much of the focus has been right on the technology, but there's so much more to it than that makes a super user an effective super user. So what I want to do in closing here is I want to get right to a super user. So I'm just going to paint a scenario for you and then just have you speak to that. So let's say you have a super user from company Ajax. So this super user meets you somewhere and they say to you, hey, I heard your podcast and I believe in all of that, but I'm in my company and we don't have a formal super user network within our company. And I just don't know how, because I believe so strongly in it, I don't know how to get my leaders and my executives interested enough to listen to the conversation about why they should do something more formal with it. Can you give me any advice? I'm just a little super user in a department, and you know me, I don't think they're little at all. They're huge. But This is just one-on-one. What would you tell this super user?
First of all, Ginger, I've gone through your website and I know what exactly you are doing to contribute towards the super user community, and your efforts, I must say, are tremendous. So it's a great job and it's a great effort that you and your community is doing to support the super users, regardless of whether they are working in company Ajax or BJax. because it's super users at the end of the day is a global community. I mean, it's not only restricted or confined to one organization. It's a global community. They're part of if you like, the ERP world. So I must say that I mean the first level of responsibility actually goes directly with the project management. So if a super user is working in company Ajax, they gotta reach out to their project management who are leading the ERP implementation project, consisting of senior executives from within the organization, and seek support from them. There has to be, like I said, an awareness among the organization, among the senior executive leadership of any organization, of arranging formal or informal training courses, and an increased and improved engagement from these group of people. So it starts from within the organization, and then community like yours can actually supplement that support by creating awareness, through technical literature, inspirational literature, creating awareness among this particular space. So it all starts from within the organization. I mean, that's what I believe in, and I think that's what I have experienced in the real world as well. But community like yours definitely supplements that.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Unsolicited feedback. So that's really great. And so what I hear in that is just classic one of the classic pillars of change management is getting out there and getting your alliances lined up with you. And so I can envision this super user that you've been talking to going and talking to their project management or some key resources in IT and starting to find out who in the organization is the most supportive of doing something like this. Because once you start getting that group of alliances together that are going to speak the same language, then you get a better opportunity to have your voice heard. And really that's what our community is all about, is raising up the voice of super users through the collective voice of all super users, because then you get heard. If you're out there alone, all by yourself, beating the drum, sometimes it's a really difficult journey to go through to get the attention. So I think that that's really, really good, strong advice, and appreciate that. And I know individual super users listening to that will really appreciate having the advice straight from the CFO office. So Moazam, this has been a really great discussion, and I appreciate so much you getting on and sharing your perspective. And what we see is that when you're talking about the value and the challenges, the world becomes a very small place because it's universal, what we're talking about. So it's really great. Well, I'm looking forward to future conversations with you, and certainly happy to have you as one of our allies in the super user space. And then hopefully we'll get to meet in person too. That would be really amazing.
For sure.
So thanks
a lot. Thanks a lot, Ginger, and congratulations for all your efforts. I'm sure it's going to go a very long way.
Right. I'll see you in Saudi or over in Australia before long. That would be great.
For sure. I'll look forward to that.
Okay. And to all of our listeners, thank you for listening, and go and be super.
Thank you. Thanks, Ginger.